I'm an architect by training, and I've been practicing architecture and design for 15 years. And one night I was out to dinner with an architect, and I had excused myself from the table. And when I came back, I noticed that he'd written on the back of his business card, "Want to have dinner?" And as he and I were leaving the restaurant, he slid that business card to another woman. And I remember looking back thinking, that was pretty smooth. He ended up going on a date with a girl, and I had an idea. My startup is a dating site where the initial encounter starts in the real world. So say you spot an intriguing stranger in the subway or at a coffee shop or a bar and you're getting ready to leave, you could hand them a card that says you've been cheeked. The other side has one of many different pickup lines you can select from, basically 150, and then it has a code that the person you were intrigued by could type in on cheek.com and find your online dating profile. So if you were the fortunate one to get cheeked, hopefully you'd be intrigued enough to go onto the website and you'll find a very simple spot to type in that code from the back of that pickup card. And once you type in the code, you'll find the profile of the person that cheeked you. And then you have the chance to communicate with that person without either party giving away any personal information. So it works like in a chat system, and hopefully you decide to soon take it offline rather than keep it on, because that's the concept of this business. So I've been working on this project of mine for 5 years now. We launched 3 years ago, and I want to tell you a little bit what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So for 1 year, I was working on finding how on earth I'm going to build this business. And one night I ran into a couple of guys at a Mardi Gras party, and they said, "This is a great idea. Why don't we sit down on Monday and bring this thing to life?" And I'm like, okay. So we sat down on Monday and we started working on a business plan, and within a week we had that plan and we started taking the next steps to building the startup. So a year later, we launched cheek.com. I was wondering, how on earth am I going to tell the whole world about this? I wanted this to be the new way to date. So I got creative and I put some cheeked cards in 20 different envelopes, just one simple card that says this card could change your life, and mailed them out to the major editors in New York City, one of which was Stephanie Rosenblum of the New York Times. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Stephanie wanting an interview with me. A week later, we were on the cover of the style section of the New York Times. And it was the most incredible initial present I could have ever been given via the press. And that led to the call from Oprah Winfrey a few days later. And following, it just went wild. We got press all over the world. I had people sending us emails asking, how can I get these cards in Russia? I'm looking for love in Canada. How can I get my hands on some of those cards? So we created an international shopping cart, and now we have customers in 27 countries in the world. So that New York Times article was pretty amazing for business. But a few weeks later, I realized there was a serious problem behind those orders. The way my business is structured, it's a recurring subscription after the first month. And my web developer hadn't ticked on the button that captures those credit cards. So that means manually I had to go back and email everyone personally saying, "Hey, we lost your credit card number. Want to give that back to us?" I think we got 2 credit cards back. So roughly in that second month coming up after all those orders came through, I lost $12,000. So I've learned a lot of lessons in the process. And those 2 guys that I met at that Mardi Gras party turned out to be my co-founders. And in the beginning, I really had no idea what I was getting into. They're both BD guys, and I didn't need 2 of the same skill set. I needed a business developer and I needed a tech co-founder. So 3 years later, my technical story is still a struggle. I outsourced all the tech. I had a graphic designer in New Zealand, I had a web developer in the Netherlands, one in London, and our UX designer was in Bolivia. So if you can only imagine the Skype calls we had with the time differences and the language barriers, it was a pretty big struggle from day one. Now I'm on to my 4th web developer. It's just a sore subject, this technology issue, and I just feel like this whole game would have changed if I'd had the right team on board from day one. It's like looking for love in New York City. It's not that easy. And if anyone out there is looking for a job as a technical co-founder, I've got a great product for you, and I'm a lot of fun to work with.